הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru Adonai shir chadash. Shiru Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru Adonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's great to hear your voices. It's great to hear my own voice because 2 weeks ago when I was here last, I barely had one. And so when I was talking with Dr. Gummer about what we were going to be doing for services, I said, I really want to do the same exact thing that we did 2 weeks ago because this time I can sing with you finally. And so very pleased to be here with everyone as we celebrate Shabbat together. My name is Rabbi Max. For all of us joining online who might be joining us for the first time, here with Dr. Artie Gummer, and so pleased to have everyone here in person joining us and online joining us from around the city, state, maybe even the world. If you are here, then you will have a siddur beneath all of your chairs. That's what I'll be calling the page numbers out from, and so you can use that to pray along. If you're online, you'll have the Shabbat handout for you to read, to click on. Jerry Penn has all of her devices laid out in such a way that she can see all of it, and so I encourage you all to maybe pick a TV or a phone to hold one of the Shabbat handouts or the service itself as you pray along with us. For all of us here, we have exits to my left and to my right and one to the rear in case we need them for any such reason that we don't expect this evening. And just take a moment right now as we're settling in, going through the beginning stages to turn off phones, turn off Apple Watches. You don't want to be that person during silent prayer who has the notification going off about some sporting event that's happening. So make sure everything's silent and won't interfere with anything going on between us and God as we join in our prayers together. Let's sing a little Shalom Aleichem as we greet one another and greeting the Sabbath angels who welcome us into Shabbat. Shalom Aleichem. It's on page 121, though I'm sure you all know the words.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. בואכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. ממלך מלאכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. ממלך מלאכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 142.
צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. ממלך מלאכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
So as we prepare to enter our service, our prayers deepen, we take in some breaths to relax ourselves, to feel the rest of the week fade away, and to enter into this space with a clearer mind and a clearer heart. So if you'd like to close your eyes, feel free to do so, or to find a space in the sanctuary that you want to affix your gaze to maybe some of the beautiful etchings on the windows or the Ner Tamid, wherever your mind takes you, as we take in a deep breath together. And out. As we think about everything that happened this past week, the good, the parts that we struggled with, the parts that we tried, take in a deep breath and out. Remember that each week we have the opportunity to start again, to renew ourselves, to renew our souls, as we enjoy this period of rest on Shabbat, ready to enter the week that awaits us on the other side. Deep breath in and out. We rise for our candle blessing. Found on page 120. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. If you would like to light your own Shabbat candles, I invite you to come forward to the tables in front of the bima and to either use the light that is already lit or the lighter on the table over here. If, as we sing, light these lights.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. And let us say Amen.
Please be seated. In the prayer Lecha Dodi, the rabbi who chose these particular verses from the prophets, from all around the books of prophets and Psalms. Part of it was imagining what Shabbat could be for us, about it being a place set aside from the rest of time, set aside from all other places that we might inhabit, that as we enter Shabbat, we are entering a place that is unique in all of the universe and all of time, and as we do so, we inherit a little bit of holiness from God. We make this space a little bit more special, a little bit holier with ourselves, with our spirit, with our song. We join together with L'Chadodi, page 138.
Lecha, 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 lecha dodi, lekrat, lekrat kala, penei, penei, Shabbat nekabela. Lecha, lecha dodi, lekrat, lekrat kala, penei, penei, Shabbat nekabela. La, lecha, lecha dodi, lekrat, lekrat kala, penei, penei, Shabbat nekabela. Lecha, lecha dodi, lekrat, lekrat kala, penei, penei, Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'divor echad, Emanu-El hamichad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litchila la la, lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Lekrat Shabbat lechuven elcha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh mekedem nifsucha, sof ma'aseh b'masheva b'cha, la la la, lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela.
Rise, facing the entrance to the sanctuary.
Tovi v'shalom ateret bala, Am b'simcha u'tzachala, Toch emunei am segula, Boi chala, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela la la. Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat lekrat kala, penei penei Shabbat nekabela.
Standing, page 146 for Baruch Hu.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Dark, the words cannot be found in your prayer book, but we sing them each week. You'll catch on quick if you don't know them yet.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day. Night becomes day. Day turns to night. Day turns to night. Roll into dark. Roll into light. Night becomes day. Day turns to night. Boreon v'layla kolel or mifnei choshech kolel or mifnei choshech v'choshech mifnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
152, we turn to words of Shema, hearing the voices of all of Israel as one.
Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shem kavod malchuto leolam va'ed. Baruch Shem kavod malchuto leolam va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. We join together with words of Ve'ahavta found on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, veshinantam levanecha, v'dibarta ba'am, b'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'aderech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emet. And just as it is important to pray these words aloud in Hebrew, so too does it help when we can hear these words in English. And so it has become the tradition of this summer to play these words, to sing the English words, the translation of V'ahavta together. It can be found at the bottom of page 154.
You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you shall speak of them when you're sitting in your home, when you're walking by the way, and when you're lying down, and when you're rising up, and when you're rising up, and you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house, and upon your gate, and upon your gate, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
With the words of Micha Mocha on page 158, we remind ourselves of our journey from slavery to freedom and our responsibility to continue that for all people who are still enslaved, for all people who struggle for freedom, that we should bring them along with us. Micha Mocha, page 158.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, Torah tehilot osei feleh, Torah tehilot osei feleh. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע יום לפני משה, זה אלינו בעמו, זה אלינו בעמו, אדוני לו לעולם ועד, אדוני לו לעולם ועד. כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושי פלא, נורא תהילות עושי פלא, נורא תהילות עושי פלא.
With Hashkivenu, page 160, this prayer of welcoming the darkness, of welcoming in what is inevitable, that we will lie down to rest, and that we pray we will be awoken to life renewed, to a new morning, to a new day. And as we do so, we remember that going to sleep can be scary sometimes. Maybe if you're a little kid, there might be monsters underneath the bed or in the closet, but those go away quickly. But as we go to sleep, we remind ourselves that we are vulnerable and that we must rely on God and on one another for our protection. Hashkivenu, page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. 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 Ushmor tzeitzenu uvoeinu l'chaim u'shalom me'ata v'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
The Shamru is our prayer that reminds us that we are supposed to imitate God, that as God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, so too do we, throughout our daily lives, be working as hard as possible, 6 days a week, and then, no matter what, to take a day of rest for ourselves, that there's nothing more important than ourselves, that self-care, making sure that we are rested, making sure that we are well, something that comes not only from good mental health care science, but something that comes from God, a divine blessing that we should all rest, that we should all find a way to rejuvenate ourselves for the week ahead, but more importantly, for ourselves. As we join together for Vishamru, page 162.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam, b'rit olam, beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et ha'areth, u'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam, b'rit olam, beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Oti le'olam. Oti le'olam.
there's a graphic tee that I love. I usually see it at protests or some kind of thing having to do with social justice. The shirt reads something like, and I could be getting this wrong, but Jews overthrowing tyrants for 3,000 years. The 1,000 might be a little bit wrong, but whatever multiple of millennia there is, it's that shirt. Besides being a clever connection of our core story of fighting for injustice, fighting against injustice today, the idea of Jewish unity behind a common cause dates back to the stories of the Torah. Throughout the journey of the Israelites from Egypt to Canaan, they faced countless enemies and only survived because they presented a united front. While there is clearly dissent within their ranks, dissent that continues absolutely to this day, when threatened, our ancestors formed a united front in order to survive. In this week's double Torah portion, Matot Maseh, the Israelites are encamped on the east bank of the Jordan River. They're getting ready to cross over into the land of Israel from modern-day Jordan to modern-day Israel. The tribes of Reuben and Gad look around and they see really wonderful grazing pastures. Apparently, Reuben and Gad, their tribes, were very well known for raising lots of very good cattle. And so the two tribes collectively decide that they want to settle right where they are, on the east side of the Jordan bank. They don't want to cross over the Jordan with the rest of the Israelites as they go on and reconquer the land, to retake the land. Upon hearing this, Moses and God become incensed. After 40 years of wandering in the desert, the tribes of Reuben and Gad are about to abandon their brethren just before they reach the promised land. Before any curses are thrown, pandemics started, or people smited or smitten or smoted, the tribal leaders of Reuben and Gad come to an agreement with Moses and God. The two tribes will be allowed to settle on the east bank of the Jordan River only after they help the rest of the Israelites retake the land. From the perspective of Moses and God, the tribes of Reuben and Gad, that's very difficult to say, God and Gad, but it was a lot of work. The tribes of Reuben and Gad are only after material wealth and are only looking after themselves. At first, they don't show any loyalty. They're ready to abandon everyone with no sense of responsibility to their fellow Israelites. From this scene in the Torah and many others like it, we derive that phrase that appears in the Talmud, Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. All of Israel takes care of one another. We also read in our Torah that we must love the stranger as ourselves. No less an important lesson from Torah, but a different sermon from what I'm talking about tonight. The phrase, Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh, all of Israel takes care of one another, has been relevant many times in Jewish history. But the issue of caring for our fellow Jews has been no more relevant than in the 20th and 21st century with the Zionist movement. While European Jewry was perseverating between leaving Europe or staying in Europe, going to America, going to far-off places, American Jewry worried very little about their own prospects on the continent. The differences in attitudes between Europe and America led to very different Zionist movements. For the minority of Americans at the time, in the early 20th century, who were in favor of Zionism, it was not a popular movement when it began, they had little to no desire to pick up and move to Palestine in the 1920s. What was more accessible to American Jews and what eventually garnered a lot of support, the vast majority of American Jewish support for the State of Israel, was something called philanthropic Zionism. For decades, and really even to this day, American Jews collected tzedakah in those little blue tin boxes from the JNF. Maybe you still have them at home. Maybe you need to return them to the State of Israel still. They're waiting on them. They would support various cultural causes, museums, symphonies, scientific institutions, and they purchased Israel bonds as gifts for different simchas. Maybe some of you still do this today. When they were called upon to participate in the building of the state of Israel, there was an implicit understanding that American Jews would keep their home across the water. And following Justice Louis Brandeis's statement, "Let no American imagine that Zionism is inconsistent with patriotism. Multiple loyalties are objectionable only if they are inconsistent." With that statement, American Jews continued various forms of philanthropic Zionism for decades without saying a whole lot, one way or the other, about Israel itself. In the last 30 years or so, the desire is growing among many, if not most Jews in America to do more than give money. Even without making aliyah, rates of aliyah are still very low in America and aren't really rising. Many American Jews want a larger voice in Israeli society, even though there was no indication that they're going to make that jump, that leap over that body of water. Today, these two versions of the diaspora, the Zionisms of wanting to give money but not say a whole lot, or the idea of wanting to give money but also to have a say-so in what takes place in Israel, these two movements start to butt heads, and we see it today. For those who see their Jewish identity stopping at the shores of the Atlantic, or the Pacific, whichever side we're on, they see Israel as dealing with its own problems. And then there are those of us who say, we are Jews, and we are supposed to take care of our fellow Jews, no matter where we are as citizens. Kol Yisrael arivim zeh lezeh. All of Israel takes care of one another. In the words of the Talmud, that responsibility is not to make sure that everyone eats their vegetables or does their homework or any of those trivial things. The purpose of Kol Yisrael arivim zeh lezeh is to ensure that righteousness prevails and that wickedness ceases. This is why Jews cringe when another Jew is in the news for something awful. This is why when one Jew succeeds, we feel that is a shared success throughout all of our community, even if they lived on the other side of the country or around the world. As Jews, there's a sense of pride in one of us succeeding because Kol Yisrael arivim zeh lezeh. All of Israel cares for one another. We know today what Reuben and Gad did not instantly realize, that no matter where we are each other's keeper. Our difficulty today is spanning that chasm of our differences, or perceived differences, between each of our modern-day tribes, Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, secular, religious, Zionist, non-Zionist, English-speaking, Hebrew-speaking, Russian-speaking. We face many barriers to achieve the unity described in the Torah. As one people, we ought to be able to speak with one another, to hold one another accountable. In our past, borders never meant those living outside of the land had to be silent communities who only said yes. However, those who do make their home in Israel face a very different reality than we do today, comfortably here in Atlanta, Georgia. And it may be very difficult as Reformed Jews sitting where we are to think about those Israelis, especially in the religious communities, the ultra-Orthodox communities who very slimly recognize us even as Jews, let alone to be a part of Israel. What do we do then? In the recent Pew survey about American Jewish life, one shocking statistic was the lack of perceived commonality between different Jewish groups, not only in America, but between America and Israel, that we are disconnected more today than we have ever been, not only between movements, although that exists, but between the movements even in the other countries. We are not at the precipice of some kind of great catastrophe, so we don't really feel it all of the time, but the data from these kind of surveys really tells us that our communities are widening that chasm, that the river, the body of water between us, is also causing some kind of miscommunication across borders. If we are to have a robust Jewish community in a vibrant Zionist movement in the 21st century, as I believe we should, it's on us as Reformed Jews to continue our mission to press for unity even with all of our differences. We must be the bigger person when others go low. If all of Israel, not only the state, but all of the Jewish people trust one another, they must look after one another, because Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. And right now, there is a movement, a growing movement of young rabbis in their first 10 years of the rabbinate who are synthesizing what it means to be a progressive Zionist or Reform Zionist movement in the 21st century. We need a Zionism that stands for an ethical, moral, democratic Jewish state, and we need to act to realize that vision. And we can do this together by demanding that we include nuance and complexity when we talk about Zionism and the state of Israel, that we don't just stop at the headline. We ought to keep up with what happens in Israel, not only when rockets are falling, but when there is the humdrum news recently of today, the past few days, of the citizenship law that did not pass. A very important topic to all of Jewry, but one that did not make the front page or even the middle section of any of our local or national papers. While we will not likely make Aliyah in our lifetimes, it would be great if any of us did. I really encourage that, but it's probably not going to happen for the vast majority of us in this room. We are somewhat like the tribes of Reuben and Gad, but we must not abdicate our responsibility to defend and create the Jewish state that we hope to be, because Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. All of Israel takes care of one another. We rise for the Amidah, our prayer of unity, connecting us back generations, going all the way back to Abraham and Sarah, leading us to this day of our relationship with God and our relationship with all of Israel. We join together on page 164.
Sfatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ananana Adonai, ananana sfatai tiftach. Ananana ufi yagid tehilatecha, ananana Adonai, ananana sfatai tiftach, ananana ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, V'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We take a few moments for ourselves to pray silently, to close our eyes, to pray those thoughts, those prayers that are written on our hearts and our minds and our souls, or to find something in our prayer book, in our siddur, that speaks to us. When your prayers have been concluded, I invite you to be seated. Page 178.
Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, u're'et b'chol sha'ah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
It's my pleasure to invite up Edie Disner, one of our co-presidents, to give us some announcements about what is happening, even though it's in the middle of summer. Temple Emanu-El is still active and a lot going on.
Thank you, Max. Welcome, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. I'm happy to see us filled up. I think lots of us were thinking we'd be outside tonight, and there's a fantastic event going on that we're all smelling. For those of you that are online, you're not being tortured. The Waffle House is making dinner for our 20s and 30s group out there. and we are all drooling a little bit, but we'll have a great oneg afterwards and make up for it. If you guys are up tomorrow morning and you want to come cheer on the softball team at 9 o'clock, they have a game. Sunday, not tomorrow. Tomorrow is Shabbat. If you're up early, you can come to services and, again, log right on. Thank you, Dr. Gummer, for the beautiful music. We are preparing for lots of programming, as Max just said, and you get a Kesher Quick every week, which has lots of good things in it. So we are excited to have more programming. Rabbi Spike has just returned from his vacay, and we will have him starting back tomorrow, really. So Tuesday. He'll be teaching on Wednesday. See, what do I know? Thank you. All right, well, we are really happy you're here, and I hope you guys come back. Shabbat Shalom.
All right, so this was a good week for some, maybe a challenging week for others, but if there was something large, something small that brought a smile to your face, something that maybe gladdened you up a little bit that you want to share with our community, could be a birthday, could be an anniversary, could be that you hit all greens on the way coming into services today. Raise your hand, tell us your name, and Edie will come around, bring the microphone to you so that we can all hear that wonderful thing that's going on in your lives. I'll go first, and I'll say this week, Zohara finally got over her first cold. Unfortunately, it was the cold that I gave to her. But she got over it, and this week she is a whole new baby. She's eating us out of house and home, and so it's really good to have her back to her usual self and even better.
Our mother, Margie Barenhout, turned 88 on Tuesday.
Wow, Mazal Tov. Wonderful. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Here you go. And this is my son, Neil, who came all the way down from Dallas.
Wonderful. Welcome.
I'll be right there.
So, Robert Wittenstein, and today we started the long-anticipated and delayed renovation of the Temple Emanu-El kitchen, and we are very excited about that.
My beautiful daughter, Jolie, right next to me, turned 14 on Monday.
Happy birthday. Mazal Tov.
I'm Gloria Lappin, and we're very proud. Tomorrow, the Marietta Cobb Museum opens an art show, and our daughter Sharon has a piece in the show, so we're very proud of her.
Wow.
She
Incredible.
is. She does acrylic painting, and her paintings are narrative.
Wonderful. Others. Well, if you are a Bar Mitzvah student watching online, this is your time to let us know that you are here by putting what you are grateful for in the comments section of our Facebook feed. And for all those things that go said and that go unsaid, all of those wonderful moments, we join together in a Shehechianu, a prayer to God, thanking God for helping enable us to reach this Shabbat. We join together. The words, if you'd like them, can be found on page 648.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Just as we are a community who celebrates the joys of life together, so too do we comfort each other when we are in pain, when we are injured, when we are in need of healing of body, of mind, or of spirit. And in our community, we are praying for the healing of Brett Samsky, Meir ben Rachmiel Vedina, Arlene Marcus, Andy Rush, Yeda Bat Yosef Lev V'Miriam, Steve Backman, Tara Cutler, William Friedman, Lisa Salonik, Hannah Hazen, Ken Schiffer, Howard Ackerman, Ludmila Kovin, Ina Slutsky, Howard Silverstein, Marcia Stevenson, Brian Fiddleman, Earl Kessler, Mike Allpass, Eliezer Moshe, Jan Misner, Marilyn Cohen, Helen Ray, Ashish Sharma, Jerry Penn, and David Fine. If you are praying for the healing for yourself or for a loved one, I invite you to say that name aloud as my hand passes over you.
Bob Lightman, Moshe Blank.
Thank you. We join together in a prayer for healing, Mishaberach Lecholim. The words can be found on page 371. If you would like them, we rise as a community together.
Of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
standing for Kiddush, our prayer celebrating the holiness of Shabbat, which can be found on page 123. I know none of you have a wine glass in your hand, but for those of you at home, this is your time to hold up your wine glass. If you'd like to enjoy something later on, that's up to you. We join together, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei Peri Hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikrae kodesh, Zecher letziat Mitzrayim, Kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat, Shabbat Shalom. We remain standing for Aleinu L'Shabeach, found on page 586. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד. Please be seated. As we conclude our service, we do so in memory of loved ones who have passed away in recent days or in years past. We are particularly thinking of those in Shloshim, the first 30 days mourning the loss of a loved one, the families of Marcia Hecht, Jill Chalif, and Julius Simon. And for those who are commemorating a yahrzeit, a death anniversary around this Shabbat, for the families of Ada Alpern, Meryl Alpert, Sura Boyukaner, Rose Brown, Barbara Berwick, Heschel Senker, Tammy Kofsky, Sam Davis, Michael Deneen, Evelyn Greenstein, Roland Hertz, Sigmund Horovitz, Lawrence Levinson, Shirley Marks, Helen Mencher, Judy Miller, Marcia Miller, Herman Newman, Gloria Paul, Beverly Perlman, Julia Pinto, Ann Plocker, Lenora Raymar, Josephine Riddick, Shelley Rifkin, Arthur Scharf, Rebecca Schneider, Gussie Schulwolf, Phyllis Stone, Dolores Stoner, Samuel Winograd. If you are in the first 30 days mourning the loss of a loved one, I invite you to please rise now at this time. If you are in the first year mourning the loss of a loved one, I invite you to please rise now at this time so our congregation may recognize you. If you are here this Shabbat commemorating a yahrzeit, the death anniversary of a loved one, I invite you to please rise now at this time. And if it is your custom, as it is here at Temple Emanu-El, to rise with those who mourn for the 6 million who perished in the Shoah and for all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, we do so now at this time, page 598. We join together in words of mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon u'b'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemed kudusha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu. Israel, Emanu-El. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu
יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I hope everyone has a wonderful day of rest. Thank you all.
Shabbat shalom.